Fate. It protects fools, little children, and ships named Enterprise. And we have a new one. But how does it compare to the vessels that have come before her? Welcome to SciTrek, your sci-fi TV and movie channel. So to say the least, the new Enterprise, the G, is a little controversial. I actually ran a poll on my channel on the community page, and I said, was it right to rename the Titan the Enterprise? And it's after nearly 3,000 votes, it's still dead on 50-50. People either love this idea or hate it. Now, we're all unanimous in our hope that we're going to get Star Trek Legacy and love how this actually set that show up. But in honouring the Enterprise, are you forgetting about the sacrifice of the Titan? Now, Terry Matalis has come out and sort of talked about this a little bit, and he's kind of made a statement that, don't worry, we're still going to honour the Titan. We're going to see a Titan B, perhaps, maybe a new lunar class in some future iteration of Star Trek. Another legacy hint, perhaps? And I would absolutely adore Star Trek Legacy to be showrun by Terry Matalis. But the Enterprise G decision, whether you like it or not, is a strange one. Now, we actually should have known we were going to get a new Enterprise at the end of this series. The way they did the Enterprise F and the way they dropped the Easter egg really early on that she was being decommissioned really should have told us. But I think we were so wrapped up in the series, or at least I was, that I just didn't twig. And I have done a previous video about how I'm not a fan of this decision. I think it was the wrong way to go. But how does the Enterprise G compare? And this has actually started a little bit of an argument on some of my comment pages, but also on Twitter, etc., about does the Enterprise G really fit in with the lineage of the name Enterprise? Does she deserve to be named the Enterprise? Well, in canon, a lot of the time, the Enterprise is called the flagship of Starfleet. Now, this is a little bit confused, and to be honest, the Federation has always confused what a flagship actually is. The flagship is supposed to be the vessel within your fleet that has the highest ranking officer aboard. That's traditionally what the flagship is. It literally carries your flag. And, well, that's not really correct for the Enterprise. The Enterprise just always had a captain on board, except for the odd occasion, all right, when it was actually Rear Admiral Kirk or, Admiral Picard at one point. But generally speaking, she's captained by captains. Now, you can get junior captains and senior captains, but the ranking officer aboard any naval vessel traditionally and within Starfleet is always actually named the captain. An admiral is a senior captain. A lieutenant commander or a commander, like Cisco aboard the Defiant, is a junior captain. Generally speaking, though, the Enterprise that we always got to see, Picard, Kirk, and so on, were always captains. So, in that respect, she shouldn't really be a flagship, but she is considered one of the most famous vessels within the fleet, and under Kirk, under Picard, etc., one of the most feared. Is that true now for Captain 7 of 9 and the G? Well, the G is not a big Starfleet vessel. She actually sits between the C and the D. The Enterprise C was 526 meters long. The Enterprise D was 642 meters long. The G, 506 meters. So she actually sits virtually dead on between the Enterprise C and D. Now, size isn't everything, some people say. But this vessel was clearly not particularly well armed, even though, actually, from a phaser's point of view, it does sit really well with other vessels. The Enterprise F, for example, had 18 Type 12 phaser banks. The G actually does have 18 phaser banks as well. Some strip, some turret. But it only has 2 torpedo launchers and a crew of 500, where the F had 4 torpedo launchers and a much bigger crew, anything up to 1,600. The E, post-refit, was massively far more armed. She actually had 16 phaser banks, which is less, but 10 torpedo launchers, 1 quantum, and 9 photon torpedo launchers. They massively upgraded her firepower, at least on a torpedo point of view, post the refit. Thank you, Shinzon. So, the Enterprise G may not be a capable fighting vessel, and it is the first time we've seen a new Enterprise that is smaller than the previous Enterprise. The Odyssey-class Enterprise F was nearly twice the length of the current Enterprise G. It came in at 1,028 meters. She is a behemoth of a vessel. But the Enterprise G is an explorer. She's not a warship. And you could also argue that, has the Enterprise ever really been a warship? Well, that is another argument. Is the Enterprise always the best, the most advanced vessel in the fleet? Well, we know that the Enterprise A, at least, was a very capable warship. She was built as a warship initially to counter the Klingon threat. We know from the Search of Spock that when the Excelsior was going to do some of its speed trials, that the captain said, we're going to break some of your speed records. Now, some of those speed records are when the engines were messed with by aliens, etc. But the Enterprise was still the fastest vessel in the fleet. And the Constitution class, similar to the Excelsior class, was a designer vessel that lasted a very, very long time. But at the point of the Enterprise A, we should say it's a design that was 40 years old. Now, obviously, it had been refit, upgraded. It was an adaptable design, similar to the Excelsior. I would argue that the Enterprise A actually doesn't quite fit in this debate. That was a vessel that was rechristened and given to Kirk almost as a gift. She continued to be the flagship of the Federation, as we saw mentioned in Undiscovered Country. And she was still considered to be formidable. The admirals actually said, we don't think anyone's going to mess around with the Enterprise with Captain Kirk at the helm. But then every other iteration of the Enterprise has always been the most advanced vessel in the fleet at that time. The Sovereign class, for example, was considered to be the most advanced vessel ever built by the Federation, designed specifically to take on the Borg. So it does seem that the Enterprise, at least within Starfleet, is considered to be their version of a flagship. She's supposed to be the most advanced, the most capable, the vessel that is out there on the front line. The G really doesn't match up to that criteria. She is a small vessel, comparatively. She's not particularly well armed. She is fast, warp 9.99 is her maximum. She was massively outmatched by the Shrike, and I can't help but think a larger vessel, say the Odyssey class, wouldn't have been so easily overwhelmed. Now, the new Enterprise has just had 1 year of being refit, and who knows what new technologies they've got on board. But at the end of the day, she's no bigger. A new, larger vessel is still going to be more capable, more adaptable, and better armed. So, the G is always going to sit middle of the pack, underwhelming in many, many ways, but with a really big name, and she's got big shoes to fill. The problem is, for me, she doesn't have the capability, technologically, weapon-wise, anything, to actually fill those shoes. She has a crew complement that's a third that of the Odyssey, and things like this, when you're on mission, matter. So, unfortunately, I still have to question this decision. It seems like an odd one. Now, it's a decision that obviously involves a plan. But I don't really want to see the Enterprise as the plucky underdog like the Titan A was. I want to see the Enterprise on the front line. And the Titan, it just doesn't match up. The Constitution 3, or the Neo-Constitution class, though, it's a design that's grown on me. I didn't like it at first. I thought it was kind of ugly. But as the series went on, I began to appreciate the lines of this new vessel. There's a lot of very subtle parts of this design that hark back to previous vessels. So, the question, the title of this video, does this Neo-Constitution class Enterprise G deserve the name? I have to say, not for me. I question this decision. I don't think it was a good decision. I'd have loved to have seen a new Enterprise. I've said this before in other videos. I wanted to see a shot like maybe the end of Undiscovered Country. I would have loved to have seen a final shot maybe where a new class of Enterprise is seen with the smaller, plucky Titan, and that maybe the Enterprise flies away and the Titan begins her journey. I think that would have been a really nice way of ending this series. And at the end of the day, the Legacy TV series didn't need to be the Enterprise. But then it wouldn't have been the legacy of the Next Generation, would it? And kind of that's the point. That's why it had to be the Enterprise. It's just maybe a shame. But at the end of the day, this plucky little underdog may do great things. I'm sure she will. I just wish that if she was a bit bigger, she'd have been able to maybe do greater things. But guys, get into the comments, tell me what you think. This is a complicated story, and at the end of the day, it's Terry Matalas's decision. He's decided to go with this, and he has a plan. And should we just trust Terry? Get into the comments and tell me exactly what you're thinking. If you are new to the channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really helps us out. Please also go over to patreon.com/SciTrek, where you get to see most of our videos first. And for a small contribution that helps the channel out each month, you get to see them without the adverts. As always, please stay safe, and I'll see you next time.